This is CBC Vancouver News.
Some of the alerts that we're going through, we've got one that we put out today that's pushing 600 properties.
And because resources are stretched so thin, one district is changing the way it notifies people under evacuation alert. Plus,
we were surprised to be among the first to be blocked.
It seems that this is the beginning of the restrictions from Meta.
The company behind Facebook and Instagram draws criticism as it blocks the social media accounts of several BC news outlets, even backlash now from the BC government. And
these are cultural hubs. They're such an amazing and important place for music and people to gather and community.
And it's the community that gets the credit for bringing the folk festival back to Vancouver. Good evening, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Much needed military help is now arriving in BC as crews struggle to contain the wildfires scorching parts of the province. 2 Canadian Armed Forces reconnaissance teams were deployed today, including a Land Force team headed for Prince George and an Air Force team that's en route to Kamloops. The province also says that tomorrow, members of the military and Public Safety Canada will meet with BC Emergency Management and wildfire officials. There are 380 wildfires currently burning in BC, the most anywhere in the country. The number of wildfires of note has ticked up as well now to 23. The number of evacuation alerts and orders remains steady at 70 tonight. Most are clustered in the central interior. Meanwhile, the Regional District of Bulkley-Nechako says it will no longer be notifying individual property owners of evacuation alerts because they simply don't have the resources.
Just to give some context, we're talking 77,000 square kilometers our regional district is, and we have fires in every corner of our regional district. We just can't really take resources away in case we need to do orders, and point people to go to the RD website and sign up for the Voyant Alert and make sure they check that and be neighborly and call your neighbors kind of thing. So that's what we're going to have to rely on at this point.
He says it's not a good use of their limited resources to have someone driving for a half day to deliver an alert when someone else might need a sudden emergency order. Experts refer to this as climate triage.
A lot of smaller, remote and rural communities are disadvantaged to begin with respect to this. Their remoteness makes it more difficult for the resources to be deployed, but also their population density and their political clout can also have an effect. And I guess, like what we see in the healthcare system, certain kinds of triage decisions have to be made about, saving infrastructure and putting effort into wildfire fighting.
In the meantime, Environment Canada has issued a severe thunderstorm watch for the central interior around Prince George. Meteorologists are tracking dangerous thunderstorms that can produce strong winds, heavy rain, and golf ball-sized hail. Another firefighter has died battling a wildfire, this one in the Northwest Territories near the BC border. The victim was from Fort Liard, and he had been working on a fire near that town, which had been burning for 10 days. Our Georgie Smythe has more on the second frontline death in just days.
In the middle of an already destructive wildfire season, another death on the front line.
Everyone in the territory is going to be mourning the loss of this firefighter.
Officials say the male firefighter, who has not been identified, died from an injury on Saturday while battling a fire in the Fort Liard district near the territory's borders with Yukon and BC.
The firefighters up here do an amazing job. They work really hard and they work really closely. And a lot of them, they're working in their own communities or in territories that are really important to them culturally or just because they grew up here.
It's Canada's second frontline fatality in the past few days after 19-year-old firefighter Devon Gale died in Revelstoke on Thursday. Her death adding grief to exhaustion as dry weather fuels the many fires in the central interior.
We need some consistent precipitation. Unfortunately, it looks like maybe starting tomorrow, we're back to a bit of a drying trend with a bit of a different inversion, and we'll get some winds, which is what we don't want to see is the winds. But
There's no water here. It means that there's no water kind of percolating gently down into our streams.
Drought is also partly to blame for the ferocity of these fires. Water scarcity is being felt across BC, even in wetland and rainforest areas.
Any of these things could ignite fairly easily, given a concerted source of ignition, like a lightning strike and something like that. So once they get going, there's a lot of fuel and it'll flow up the branches up into the crown of the tree, and once it gets going and all the trees get involved, it's really hard to put it out, and so that's why fires go out of control.
While BC might see some rain this week, it's unlikely to be enough to slow down the flames, but the skies might offer some help with the arrival of international firefighters. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
And now a look at the 5-day forecast. We'll start with the futures radar to give you a look at the wildfire situation across Western Canada. We do have a bit of a low pressure system that's tracking east. Coming in behind it is a bit of a cool air mass that's going to bring some cooler temperatures. That is the saving grace, especially in those those hardest hit fire regions like Prince George, Williams Lake. Those cooler temperatures will be much welcomed. Big relief there. The bad news is it will bring as well some isolated thunderstorms. Again, another chance of lightning. That is the bad news. You can see that through Prince George, northern and central interior, even east through the Kootenays. We do have still special air quality statements in effect for many areas from that wildfire smoke, just choking out a lot of those regions where the fires are thick, and the smoke blowing it across much of BC where there aren't any wildfires either. But take a look there. Prince George is under a severe thunderstorm watch, so we could see flash flooding possible, mixed in some heavy hail as well, gusty winds. That's the third factor we're watching for with the wildfires. Here's the 5-day forecast for Metro Vancouver. Pretty seasonal, not very dramatic around the south coast. We've got average highs 23 for the daytime high, average overnight lows around 13, so right where we should be. Could see a chance of a passing shower come Monday. That's only 40% chance though. Otherwise, lots of sunshine, warm temperatures. Just a nice July forecast if you're in Metro Vancouver. Nice blue skies ahead. In other news today, a 7.2 magnitude earthquake rocked the Alaska Peninsula region last night. The United States Geological Survey confirms the earthquake hit at a depth of 9.3 kilometers. The U.S. Tsunami Warning System immediately issued a tsunami threat, then canceled that advisory about an hour later. BC's Emergency Management Ministry says there was never any threat to our province. Well, several news outlets across BC say their social media accounts with Meta, that's the company behind Facebook and Instagram, are currently blocked. Last month, Meta announced it would end access to news on its social media sites for Canadian users in response to the Online News Act. Passed by the federal government, the legislation would force tech giants to pay to post Canadian journalism. As Corey Correa is finding out, the move is drawing criticism from news organizations and backlash from the provincial government.
We were surprised to be among the first to be blocked.
The Tyee, a BC online news magazine, first noticed changes to its Instagram account last Tuesday when its social media manager tried to publish content and saw half of its posts had disappeared.
The implications are huge.
Later in the week, the same thing happened to the Nelson Star and independent Victoria news outlet Check News.
So it seems that this is the beginning of the restrictions from Meta.
It's Meta's reaction to Bill C-18. On June 1st, the company announced tests would begin on Facebook and Instagram that would limit some users and news outlets from viewing or sharing content in Canada. It says the random tests are ongoing and are meant to come up with a way to comply with the Online News Act that doesn't involve paying news outlets for posting their journalism. The Tyee's editor-in-chief worries what it could mean to the journalism industry as a whole.
If it can't be found and it can't be shared, there's no business model at all.
There's also concerns it could prevent locals from accessing emergency alerts like evacuation orders.
We are in the midst of an extreme wildfire danger right now on Vancouver Island. People want information. There's a severe drought occurring right now. It is important that they can access our news in a timely fashion.
In response to the move by Meta, the provincial government has stopped advertising on Facebook and Instagram. Premier David Eby says BC wants to send a strong message that journalism is a vital public service and news access should not be blocked. The stalemate over compensation has news organizations pushing for consumers to find different routes to their content, such as going directly to a website. But that may be a difficult shift for some after years of Googling topics or clicking on social media links.
It's too entrenched. It's deeply rooted in our online behavior. And I think these big tech companies have exploited this fact, and they are now trying to put more pressure on the news industry in Canada.
Ultimately, he says democracy is at stake, with a big void remaining if access to local journalism is restricted. Corey Correa, CBC News, Vancouver.
After some uncertainty about its future, Vancouver's Folk Festival made an impressive return this weekend. Saurabh Sandhu caught up with some artists and music lovers as the festival wrapped up today.
Oh, and I know that nothing will keep you downstairs.
Vancouver's Folk Music Festival is back, and indeed, nothing is keeping it down.
Oh, it's great to be back.
It's one of the most beautiful settings for a festival, I think.
It feels like a big holiday.
Jericho Beach is once again the backdrop, with multiple stages throughout the park.
People are so grateful and thankful, and I'm even more grateful and thankful right back at them.
For artists like Crystal DeSantis, it was her first time performing at the festival, but she hopes to come back every year.
They're such an amazing and important place for music and people to gather and community. And I think that's so incredibly important in any city, especially in Vancouver.
The artists are so glad to be back, and there's just such a beautiful sense of community of what happens in this park, a sense of joy and of safety.
In January, the festival's board announced it would be cancelled due to financial struggles. But that decision was reversed after a huge outpouring of donations.
We were really heartbroken when the festival nearly didn't happen this year, and we're so delighted to be back.
It hit my heart because I think this has become such an iconic festival for this area in Vancouver.
I am very heartened by the way that people pulled together and donors came through, and I can't believe what they pulled off in a short, time frame, in just a few short months.
Some hope the turnaround might bring about a more radical change.
I'm hoping that what happened, saving this festival, will propel just the sort of culture forward around thinking what we might have lost here.
Organizers are left hopeful about the Folk Fest's future.
We have more funders and donors stepping up, as I was talking about. And we have a plan for the future, for the financial security. We will be back next year.
Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Vancouver.
A pair of World War II-era planes are currently on tour across BC. The U.S. Commemorative Air Force takes its planes on a Legends of Victory tour each summer. They make 20 stops across North America, and this week the B-17 and B-25 bombers are in Cranbrook before heading to Penticton and Victoria as well. We took a behind-the-scenes look at the flying relics.
Hi, I'm Gordie Johnson. I'm from the Commemorative Air Force, and my title is Ground Operations Coordinator, or GOC. In other words, I'm the manager of the B-25 crew. Our real mission, really, is to educate, to inspire, and to honor the greatest generation. There never will be another greatest generation. We want to show folks and educate folks on what these young, brave men did in these planes. It costs a huge amount to operate these aircraft, and so that's our way of preserving history. These are flying museums. Of the B-17 history, there were 12,731 that were built. As we speak, Sentimental Journey is the only one that will be flying in North America this summer. So out of 12,731, we're down to precious, precious few. The B-25, at last count, we knew that there were 34 flying, so there's more. The B-25 is our combat veteran. It has 15 missions. The B-25 missions were primarily low altitude, strike and attack. The B-17, of which we're sitting in, is more, it's a heavy bomber. It bombed at higher altitudes. Bombing on a high altitude, it was intensely cold, minus 40, minus 45. They wore electric suits, electrified suits. In the earlier version, the windows were opposite each other and they were open. You can appreciate the mess that made with two gunners back to back. Just an awful mess. These planes are built for freedom, not for comfort.
And today marked the 37th annual Silly Boat Regatta in Nanaimo. It's not just for fun either. It's to raise money for a local child development center. As Claire Palmer tells us, this year's fundraising goal is the highest yet, $100,000.
When I say silly, you say boat, silly! Louder!
Things got pretty ridiculous in the Nanaimo Harbor today. Hundreds gathered to get silly.
We always say, come down and be silly, so we're going to see silly for sure. That's what we encourage. We put the fun in fundraising, and we are the Child Development Center, so we do lots of fun activities and lots of great things for the community.
The Child Development Center has helped nearly 2,000 children and their families in the last year. As a not-for-profit, they rely on fundraisers like this to keep their programs going.
Just helping out is give back is like, we need a lot of volunteers to come and to do this. The staff was excellent from the 70s to the 80s when I was young. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here today speaking.
This year, the McKee family raised the most money for a family team with $2,700. They raised it in honor of family friend Christy.
It's a good way to bring people together. They just help those children and youth, well, children that just need extra support developmentally, whether it's in, like any way they can. And it's local. My kids both went to the preschool there. It's just it's a good service.
Last year, the regatta raised roughly $60,000. This year's grand total is expected to surpass that.
It's incredible. It just does my heart good to see how many people come. And the Silly Boat Regatta, it's a great, free for the most part, family event.
Something so silly makes a world of difference for countless kids. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Nanaimo.
Well, it's something a lot of us have never done, but these cubers do it in mere seconds. After the break, we'll take you to the Canadian Speed Cubing Championship. Stay with us. Welcome back. Europe's heat wave could be getting even hotter. A system is moving north from Africa that could push temperatures above 45 degrees. Italy is at greatest risk. 16 of its cities today were issued the highest level of heat alert. The country's health minister is warning people to stay indoors between 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. Europe's record high is 48.8 degrees. That was set 2 years ago in Italy. Forecasters say that record could fall. Well, hundreds of teens raced against the clock at the Canadian Speed Cubing Championships in New Westminster today. The sport involves solving Rubik's Cubes of different shapes and sizes in the quickest time possible. We stopped by the tournament to ask cubers, new and old, why they love competing so much.
Might be like 20 turns per second. I'm the current Rubik's Cube Canadian record holder for the single solve of 4.14 seconds. I always had a Rubik's Cube lying around the house. Like when I was younger, I would like memorize certain things, like digits of pi, for example. And I thought, why don't I use that sort of skill to solving cubes? Because the way you solve cubes is by memorizing a lot of algorithms to perform certain steps on the cube.
I was just scrolling through YouTube and I saw all these guys doing all these Rubik's Cubes and I thought that'd be super cool. I looked up a video on how to solve it and that's just how I got into it, and I just kept doing it ever since. And this is my third competition. I averaged like 14, 15, although my comp results say otherwise because I have severe comp nerves, which basically makes my hands get sweatier, my hands start shaking. In fact, they're still shaking right now. The community of cubers is a very fun community. It's quite hard to run into someone who will try to demotivate you. If you get stuffed into a room with a whole bunch of people, it's the perfect place to make friends because they all have the same passion. I was just watching the interview. Oh, nice. Yeah, I've been interviewing for a while, yeah.
I really like competing for sure. Like you might expect at a top level, hey, I want this other person to do bad. It's not really like that. You want other people to do well. A big part of cubing, the way it works in competition, is that you compete against yourself basically, and you just want to beat your personal records. Not only just getting good results, which is very satisfying, especially since lots of practice goes into it, but it's also like the community and making really good friends and people that are very like-minded.
Well, here's a time lapse of the sunrise over downtown Vancouver this morning. A beautiful morning it was. A new program in the Okanagan takes kids through a day in the life on a farm. We'll take you there next. Stay with us.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back. Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back. Well, how is this for some summer fun? Farm Chores. It's a new program in Kelowna. It lets little kids get their hands dirty while learning about life on a farm. It's called Little Farmers Club, and we caught up with the program's founder and some little farmers. Take a look.
So I'm Barbie. Little Farmers Club started this year in July, and after years of facilitation in the equine learning and therapy, I realized that there is such a demand for our kids nowadays just to get out of their homes, off their screens, and explore what it would be like to be living on a farm.
Who's that?
Rusty.
Who's Rusty?
I think he's a boy.
Pretty snorty. Hi, Rusty.
I'm not exactly sure if he's a boy or a girl. Oh boy.
Candace, tell me about why you signed Lily up for this program.
Oh, because she loves the farm. She loves farm animals. And so this was a perfect fit for her because she gets to learn about how to take care of them here at the farm.
And why do you think it's important for kids as young as Lily to get that education, to learn, not even education, but that experience at this age?
Oh, I think it's wonderful. I think having to know that kind of stuff at such a young age as this helps them develop just a knowledge base for all these animals at such a young age, and then they can, later in life, they can decide whether it's something they'd like to do, like on a more permanent basis.
Why was it important to bring kids into this?
For me, working with kids at such an early age, teaching them leadership, empathy, what the animals have to teach them as far as self-confidence and responsibility. It's very heartwarming for me to watch them progress throughout the program. My heart smiles throughout everything I do here at the farm. Yeah, it's beautiful to watch.
What more?
And that is your late news for this Sunday. For news anytime, you can always head to our website. We're at cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Thank you so much for watching this weekend. Have a great night.